Hi artists, we're going to finish our folded mass self-portraits today, and the last thing we need to do is add color. Because this is a folded art project, I don't recommend using markers to add color. What I do recommend using is an art supply that won't bleed through the page. So supplies could include colored pencils if you have them. I highly recommend crayons. That's what I used when I did my finished one. Crayons and colored pencils, they both give you a lot of control over the shade that you're using, depending on pressure. So we're going to talk about that today. I want to show you guys some coloring tricks to make your pictures look super awesome. Now, when you're adding color to your artwork today, the details and everything, yeah, that is totally up to you. I've already started coloring in my mess with crayons. If you put a lot of pressure on a color, the color gets either brighter or darker depending on the shade. So like my green here, I'm making like a really bright green because I'm pushing really, really hard. If I want to do, let's say, a light green and a dark green mask, something that I can do is I can push really lightly with my crayon, and it's still the same crayon that I'm using, but you can see the difference in the shade. I have dark and light. If you want to practice your hand control on a separate piece of paper before you draw directly on your finished project, it's always a great idea to do that if this is something that you haven't tried before. Something that I like to do on a piece of paper to practice is I like to kind of start at the bottom and add more pressure to the art supply as I go up. So you can kind of see the change from light, when I move my hand away of course, from light to dark. Kind of practice that. Now, the colors are up to you, but I do have some tips when it comes to hair, eyes, and skin color. If you have brown eyes, for my picture, I just have brown eyes. I didn't need to mix colors. I just used brown, pretty easy. Some of you have like blue-green eyes. If you have blue-green eyes, what colors will you need in your crayon box? Blue and green. You can find those colors and you can mix them together as long as you're using crayons. This is something that markers really can't do as well. Colored pencils you can blend, crayons you can blend, markers not so much. If you have hazel eyes, maybe you'd like to do the same thing and kind of mix green and brown. You can use that same idea on your hair. I know there's some people out there who have blonde hair. If you have blonde hair, yellow would be a great color to use, but you know what? Maybe your hair is not this bright. Something that you can do to kind of darken that shade of blonde is you can add another color to it. You can use a brown crayon and kind of lightly, like I was showing before, add another layer to your hair to kind of get your shade. If you have red hair, if you have dark brown hair, light brown hair, there's a lot of different hair colors. You can kind of experiment, and I do recommend always testing the color on a separate piece of paper before you try it on your picture so you can make sure that you like it. Now, when it comes to doing your skin color, you can do the same idea. Everybody in the world has a different skin color. You can kind of look at your skin and see, what color am I going to need? Some crayon boxes do have colors that work pretty well for skin, but not every crayon box does. So I do have some recommendations for you. Before you do it directly on your paper, definitely test, like I keep mentioning, on a scrap piece of paper. If you have like fair skin, something that you can do is you can take an orange and really, really lightly shade. Just make sure that it's not like a super bright orange, like some crayon boxes have a color orange like this, which doesn't really always work that well for skin. So just be really mindful, always test first. Some crayon boxes have an apricot color that might work pretty well. And your crayon box should also have a brown. Brown also works amazing for skin, and you can get so many different shades. You can get medium shades. You can get darker shades. You can get light shades. So find a color that works for you. This is all about hand control and practice. Try to see how lightly you can push, how hard you can push to make different shades of a color. Something fun to try, and this is for like anybody who wants to try something very advanced for this project, but let's say I'm shading in my neck. I'm creating a like tan color. I'm using the brown, I'm pushing really lightly. Okay. Now if I want to make it look like I have kind of like a shadow underneath the neck, something that I can do with the same crayon, with the brown, is I can add kind of like a medium brown. So I'm pushing a little bit harder, and I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath the neck. And that's going to make it look like my portrait's a little bit more 3D. So again, this takes a lot of practice, but if you do want to try something a little bit more advanced, feel free to try to integrate shadows into your portrait. When artists make self-portraits and portraits, a lot of times there's a shadow underneath the neck. A lot of times there's a shadow underneath the nose, underneath the bottom lip. Sometimes in between the bridge of the nose and the eyebrow, there's a bit of a shadow. So if you're really in the mood for a challenge and you want to give that a try, feel free to try it. Do you have to? Of course not. Do your best. Have fun with this. I can't wait to see what you come up with. When you're finished with this project, please do attach a picture to our Google Classroom so I can see it. Have fun. I can't wait to see what you create.